What's up, guys? Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be, gathering around the campfire to hear tale of danger and facing off against Africa's Black Death, the Cape Buffalo. This will be another one of my hunting streams that I've been going over. So I'm just going to pull up a Substack article that I wrote here, and I'm going to do a live reading of it and answer any questions that might appear in the chat. So just a little chill Saturday stream about Tales of Danger and all that good stuff. So share the other screen here. Here we go. The concept of danger, encountering the black deaths of Africa. Not all those who wander are lost. J.R.R. Tolkien. Dawn. The sun rose on the scrublands below. It was quiet. No sounds of the city, no car horns or bustling of people, no alarm clocks or bird songs. My eyes slowly opened as the sun started to shine through the window of our hut. Then it hit me. Today was the day, my first day on the hunt. I had longed for this day as long as I could remember. I quickly got out of bed and felt the cold brush of the morning air. My father was already up and taking a morning shower. I couldn't wait. I was too excited. I put on my long shirt, long pants, hat, and boots and rushed over to the food hut for breakfast. Frog, Gavin, and Kevin were already sitting down drinking their morning coffee. They were talking about how the day would go. The idea was to drive around in the Jeep and looking for signs of Cape buffalo. The Cape buffalo is the largest bovid species in Africa. Adult males can reach almost 2,000 pounds in weight, stand 5 feet tall, and are 10 feet long. The horns, called a boss, can reach 50 inches from tip to tip, though the world record was 64 inches from tip to tip. Herds vary in size from a dozen to several hundred individuals, and they are often considered one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. We're not talking about a friendly barnyard cow here. Cape buffalo have very short tempers and are extremely aggressive. While lions and humans are the only threat to a full-grown adult, buffalo calves are popular prey animals for all of Africa's predators. As such, they are always on edge, and unlike other African prey animals like zebra and antelope, buffalo stand and fight. It's very common for herd members to gore lions that are attacking other members of the herd. More so than any other species, the buffalo wants to fight you. It wants to kill you. According to some reports, they kill several hundred people a year, and there are many records of them chasing hunters up trees, charging vehicles, and in the worst cases, trampling and goring hunters to death. Hunters have given this beast the nickname the Black Death on account of their dark coats and their surprising speed. All members of the Big Five are dangerous, but in my opinion, the Cape buffalo is the most dangerous big game animal in all of Africa. Here's a nice picture of what these herds look like in these scrub forests throughout Africa. We had tens of square miles around camp that we could search. It was late April, and Zimbabwe was moving into the dry season. During this time of year, the herds start to congregate into larger numbers because water is becoming harder to find. In the wet season, older bulls are often off by themselves, away from the herds. Our tactic was to drive around the bush looking for any sign of the herds. The good thing about tracking buffalo is that a large herd of massive animals is easy to follow. So while it is easier to find and track the buffalo, it makes it far more difficult to hunt them. A large herd brings many issues to the big game hunter. First, it is much harder to find and isolate your trophy from a large herd. Buffalo are especially difficult in this regard because they have very limited sexual dimorphism. Males and females both carry bosses, they have similar coat colors, and are of a similar size. Second, it is much harder to hide from 50 pairs of eyes as opposed to 5 pairs of eyes. While the buffalo are aggressive, they will still choose to run if the option is available. Third, it is difficult to get a clean shot. A central tenet of hunter ethics is a clean kill and a clear backstop, i.e., there's nothing behind your target that your bullet may damage upon exiting the animal. When animals are grouped up in a herd, it's very hard to get a clear backstop. The tactic for this hunt would be to find signs of the herd track them by jeep until fresh sign is found. Next, we would track them on foot until we see the herd. Then we would find a position either on a hill or in a grove of trees to sit and search the herd for a suitable target. We would use binoculars to search for a large bull within the herd, and then we would stalk to a position that we hoped he would walk by. Fox joined us as we finished our breakfast. We then jumped into the jeep and we were off. Gavin, Kevin, and Frog sat in the front of the jeep. There was more than enough room for them to sit comfortably, each with space for a rifle. Fox, myself, and a native tracker sat up top, and another 2 natives were in the bed of the jeep. The one next to me spoke broken English. His name was Neva. He was to be my bodyguard, so to speak, to watch over me and make sure I didn't get into any trouble. After my incident with the Green Mamba, they weren't taking any more chances with me. The other 2 men in the back spoke no English. We drove away from camp and into the bush. Most people think that Africa is crawling with game around every corner. This is not the case in most places. Nature documentaries will often show you Eastern Africa, where it is all grassland and very little trees. Southern Africa is not like that. The climate is much wetter, resulting in far more trees, forests, and scrublands. It also has many more hills and rocks than the flat grasslands of Kenya and Tanzania. I quickly became discouraged after we drove for 2 hours, seeing nothing more than birds flying overhead. It seemed as though we were aimlessly wandering in circles, hopelessly lost, searching for a needle in a haystack that was miles wide. Finally, Gavin stopped the jeep and we got out to have lunch. We were on the edge of a scrub forest overlooking a clearing no more than a few hundred yards wide. We pulled chairs out from the back and set them up in a circle under an acacia tree. We ate sandwiches and decided to make our way across a river to see whether that would bring us better luck. With lunch over, we packed into the jeep and drove across the clearing towards the river. As we crossed the clearing, we finally spotted some game. 2 duikers ran across our path and hurried into the tree line. One of the smallest African antelopes. Duikers come in a dozen or so subspecies. The largest, the common duiker, reaches no more than 2 feet tall and 50 pounds. These 2 were a male and a female, and they quickly bounced across the clearing into the tree line. Their prancing reminded me of white-tailed deer back home. This is a picture of a common duiker, similar to the ones that we saw. As we got closer to the river, we finally started to see more game. A pair of giraffes, a few waterbuck, and some zebra. We finally came to the river. It was no more than 100 feet wide, only a few feet deep, and very slow flowing. It was a safe place for us to cross. The banks were clear of trees and not very steep. Gavin put the jeep into gear and we started to drive across to the other side. It was rocky and bumpy. Clearly the bed was lined with rocks instead of sand. We continued to bounce along until we reached the other side. The jeep started to move up the embankment, but it suddenly came to a stop. Shift to reverse, nothing. The back left tire was stuck in the mud. Quickly, Gavin directed us to get out of the back of the jeep in order to shift our weight. We got out of the back and sat on the shoreline. Still, the jeep would not move. You may think that this sounds absurd, but mind you, there are no bridges out here and no roadside assistance. We were on our own. I would come to learn that this is a common occurrence on African safaris. Be prepared to lose between 1 to 3 days of hunting due to weather or just getting stuck like this. What was to be an afternoon of tracking game turned into hours of chopping down trees and making a makeshift bridge for the jeep to get out of the mud. Of course, I was none too pleased about this and got quite bored. The guides and trackers were in the mud for hours trying to get the jeep out, and I, a young boy with a short attention span, was not having it. I would pace back and forth along the water's edge, peek my head over the bank, and look out towards the scrub forest beyond, sometimes tossing rocks into the river, trying desperately to skip them. This section of shoreline seemed safe enough. The water was too shallow for adult crocodiles or hippos, and we were loud enough that we wouldn't surprise any game coming down to drink. It was actually kind of peaceful until one of the trackers yelled something in his native tongue and jumped to the back of the jeep at lightning speed. Everyone's eyes were drawn to him, and Neva immediately ran over to me and stood in front of me. I peeked my head around him, trying to see what the commotion was all about. Everyone was moving to the shoreline and pointing at the water, and then I saw it. Something swimming in the water. It was a snake of some kind. It was big, maybe 6 to 8 feet long. It was difficult to tell. It was jet black and moving fast. It had a flat neck. I immediately thought it was a species of cobra. Africa has around 30 species of cobra, all of them deadly. As I got closer, someone tossed a rock at it. It splashed in front of the snake, causing it to change course and go further downriver before it reached the bank. When it got out of the water and made its way into the trees, I recognized what it was. It was another species of mamba, the black mamba. The black mamba is regarded as the deadliest snake in all of Africa. It is a massive snake. Adults reaching up to 14 feet in length. It is a member of the elapid family, the same family as cobras, and has some of the deadliest venom on the planet. A neurotoxin that attacks the nerves and sends signals from your lungs to your brain. Within 10 minutes of being bitten, you struggle to breathe. The bite is often fatal within a half hour. Without medical treatment, there is a 0% survival rate. What makes the black mamba far more deadly than any other snake in Africa, including its cousin, the green mamba, is that they have a vast range. They are common throughout all of southern and east Africa. They are also very adaptable. They thrive on the ground, in the trees, on the savanna, in forests, in cities, and near the water. The black mamba is also very aggressive and is one of the rare species of snake that prefers to bite multiple times. Venom is very taxing on the body to produce. It requires a lot of energy, and snakes actually have the ability to decide whether or not to envenomate. This is called a dry bite, when they don't want to expend the press's energy. Black mambas, however, almost never deliver dry bites. And finally, the black mamba is one of the fastest snakes on the planet. They can reach speeds of 12 miles per hour. For context, the average human runs at 4 miles an hour. When threatened, the mamba flattens out its neck, similar to a cobra. Then it opens its jet black mouth and hisses loudly in what is often called the kiss of death. Thankfully, this one slithered off into the trees, never to be seen again. 2 days and 2 of the deadliest snakes on Earth. I was on a roll, I thought. Still zero concept of danger at my age. It took us another hour to get the Jeep out of the mud. But by the time it was approaching sundown, we still needed to get back to camp. We started to head home, and closer to camp, we found another place to cross the river, this time with no issues. The sun was setting as we pulled into camp and got ready for another evening of dinner, stories around the fire. No buffalo today, but as the hunter always says, there is always tomorrow. All right, cool. So get rid of that one. Yeah, so very interesting at that age. As I mentioned before, I was only 11 or 12 at the time during this hunt, and just growing up in the West in America, you really just have zero concept of what is actually dangerous to you. Like if someone had gotten bitten by one of these snakes, toast. You're absolutely done. There's nothing you can do about it. You're hours upon hours away from any medical attention of any kind, and I was just a little kid and totally prepared to go up and take a look at it and run up toward the water's edge or run under trees and not look where I was stepping. And I would not recommend, if you're taking an African safari, to do it the way we did, having a young adventurous boy running around. It's just not the smartest idea. On future safaris I took when I was much older, this wasn't an issue, but at that age, yeah, it definitely was a bit of a problem. But yeah, so getting choked up, rehashing all these stories and everything like that. Eventually, when I do these stories and I get to later safaris that I took when I was older, I actually kept a journal of these hunts, and I'm actually going to read like direct quotes from those journals from when I was a kid, and just compare and contrast the writing from back then to right now. So that's going to be really interesting content coming up at some point. But yeah, Africa's dangerous. Poisonous snakes, civil unrest, and big ass megafauna that want to run you over and kill you. But yeah, and pretty much each of these posts I put on my Substack was like pretty much 1 day of like the safari. So the next one will be like day 3 of this Zimbabwe safari, and that one's interesting because we start changing tactics and going for African leopard, and then eventually, as the story progresses, an actual buffalo hunt where buffalo gets shot, and then actual leopard hunts where trophies are taken, and eventually I've got stories with throughout America and all over the place, future stories for Africa. So it's gonna be really fun stuff. But I like doing these things, and I like just reading out these Substack pieces, and you know, I enjoy hunting in all its forms. So I'm always excited to talk about it. So until next time, guys, be on the lookout. Man's Hour coming up Thursday next week, and then I'll probably do another hunting stream next weekend. So until next time, be well, everyone.